Hello everyone, this is Ryan. In this lesson I'm going to show you how to work with a local Git repository using the Git GUI client. So I have a folder on my desktop called project, which I've opened up. It's got a whole bunch of Python files in it, and I would like to create a Git repository out of this folder so that I can start tracking changes made to any of these files. So I'm going to begin by launching the Git GUI. And if you haven't yet installed this, please do so by going to the official Git website and downloading it. The official Git website is git-scm.com. And this is available for Linux, Windows and Mac. It looks exactly the same in all three operating systems, and that is why I'm using this particular client for demonstration purposes. But the principles that you learn here will be the same for all other Git GUIs. Okay, so we're going to start by creating a new repository. So we'll choose the first option. Click on create, and this will become a local Git repository. If we look at what happened behind the scenes and go to our view menu, you'll see there's an option here called hidden items. If we tick on that, we can then see a hidden folder called .git, and this is in fact where the local repository is stored. So all changes made to files added to this repository are tracked here. We'll be able to see the full history of every single file added to this repository, and this is just behind the scenes, so we're going to switch off the hidden items for now. That way we don't mess around with something we shouldn't by accident. Okay, so let's go and take a tour of the interface. Firstly, we have four main regions here: unstaged changes, staged changes. We've got a preview area here which will show us the contents of any of these files, and then a place where we can type in a commit message and a couple of little shortcuts to most commonly used commands, which we're going to look at. All of these commands are also available on these menus, so you can also use the menus to access these commands, and the commands also have hotkeys as shortcuts, which you may find yourself using for convenience sake. To begin, we need to make some changes to the settings. So let's go to the edit menu and choose options. The two most important options here are the username and the email address. We need this so that when we commit files to the repository, they will be logged for future people looking at the log messages. They'll be able to see who it was that made changes to the files. So we can either do that just for this one repository, which is the project repository, or we can do it on the right hand side here for all future repositories. So I'm going to do it for all repositories. So put in my name and my email address, and then click on save, and that will then save those changes. Now let's talk about the different areas. So the unstaged changes area will show me files that differ from the local repository. So these are files in the working directory that are different to the files in the .git repository. So if I click on any of these files, I can actually see the contents of them. Notice that the writing is in black, and at the top it says untracked. So whenever you see untracked, you know that Git is not actually keeping track of any of the changes made to these files. So because it's the first time we're adding files to the local repository, every file is actually untracked. So to start tracking these files, we need to move them from the unstaged area to the staged changes area. To do that, we click on Staged Changes button over the bottom. Click Yes, and these files have now been moved to the staging area. The staging area is just a temporary area. It's not actually added to the repository at this point in time. We have to commit the changes now to move it into the local repository. Right, so what I'm going to do is click on one of these files once again just to get a preview. But you'll see a bit of a difference now from when we clicked on the file in the unstaging area. Now we get each line in green with a plus in front of it, indicating that there are additions made to the files since being added to the repository. And everything is in green because this is the very first time these files are being added to the repository, so it sees them as all being additions. Okay, so now we're going to provide a message. You always have to provide a message when you commit your changes to the repository. And I'm just going to call this the initial commit. Seeing it's the first commit, we're going to click on commit. All the files will disappear from the staging area, and we'll get a message at the bottom indicating that these files have been committed. You'll also notice a serial number. This is a unique number indicating that this is a unique commit. So to view the commit, we can go to repository and visualize the master's history. Now master is the main branch that we have when we first create a local repository. We're going to be talking about branches in our next video in more detail. For now, everything will be in the master branch. So you can see the little green block here telling us what branch we're dealing with, which is the master branch, and the message of our initial commit. You can see who the person was that made the commit and the date and the time of the commit. You can also view every single one of the files that were added to the commit. And you'll notice we can choose between diff, old version, and the new version of the file. So the old version in this case is all empty because this is the first time these files were added to the local repository. So they, according to Git, there were no old versions of these files. New version is the current version of all of these files, and diff is the difference between the old version and the new version. And seeing that there is no difference, we just get, or there is a difference, it's just they're all additions to the file. Okay, we can go out of this now, and now I want to add some new files to the directory. So I'm going to right click and make a new file. I'll just call it test, and just put in some content here. Save my changes. I'm also going to delete a file, greeter.py. It's disappeared, and I'm going to change this file called sillystring.py. I'm going to open it with a notepad editor, Notepad++, which is a nice editor to use, but you could use any text editor. And I'm just going to change this number to 11 and save the changes, and then I'll also delete a line from this file. So if I now go into the Git GUI and press rescan, this is like a refresh button. So it will pick up any files that have changed since the last commit. And here are the 3 files that have changed. So we have firstly greeter.py, and it says it's missing. So it's detected that it's missing from my working directory. In other words, I've deleted it from this directory, so that's why it's picking it up as missing. Remember that it does have a copy of it in the local repository, which is that hidden directory called .git. So I could actually restore it if I needed to do so. Then I've got the next file, which is sillystring.py. You'll notice that the lines in red with the minus signs in front of them have been removed from the file, and the lines in green have been added. Any changes made to one specific line are reflected as a deletion and then an addition. If I go to test.txt, it's a brand new file, so at this point it's untracked, so Git knows nothing about it. So what I can do is just stage that one particular file to be committed, and that's moved into my staging area. Theoretically, we could stage all of these files in one, but it's good practice to separate files into logical groups. So anything that is a logical change to the project should be made in one commit. So this was a brand new feature, let's pretend. So I'm going to just say new feature. You can view the exact changes made here. And then I'm going to commit that. And now you'll see it's disappeared from the staging area. I can always go and visualize this by going to the repository menu and clicking on visualize master's history. Remember, master is the branch I'm dealing with. So you'll see that we now have the initial commit where we put in all the files from the beginning, and then the newest commits are always on top. So the new feature is the one I've just done now, and you can also see that the master branch is at this point in the tree structure. So date and time of commit, and we can once again see a different serial number to the previous serial number. So if I go to initial commit, note the serial number starts with 68CA, and if I go to this commit, it's a totally different serial number. So this is actually a what we call a it's an algorithm. It's a checksum, and it's using SHA-1 to work that out. That's just the type of algorithm that's used. And then I've also got uncommitted changes. So these are things that I haven't yet committed to the repository. So that I can go and sort out now by going back to the unstaged area and then deciding what I want to do with these. So once again, they're two logical changes. So I'm going to do them in two different commits. This one was to delete the file completely. That's why everything's in red. So if I want to go ahead with this, I can then add it to the staging area and commit that. But if I decide I don't want to add it, I want to restore this file from the local repository to my working directory, I can do so. So just to show you what's going to happen behind the scenes, you can see the greeter.py file is currently missing, but I can restore it by going to commit and revert changes, and say revert changes, and you'll see that the greeter file has once again reappeared in my working directory. So it's actually copied the version from the local repository and put it back into the working directory, restoring my changes. I could then have a look at silly string, and if I decide to undo these changes, I could do the same thing by going to revert changes. But in this case, I do actually want to keep these changes. I like these changes, so I'm going to add a commit message. Remember that before you do your commit, you need to put it into the staging area. So we can just click on stage changed and then add a commit message. If you can't remember what you did, just click on the file and you can see exactly what was changed in the file. So I'll just say removed a print line and changed 10 to 11. Okay, this is not a very good commit message. In reality, we would be very specific on what changes we've made. So now I'm going to commit these, and now I have nothing in the unstaged area and nothing in the staged area, and that means that the contents of the working directory is a true reflection of what's in the local repository. To visualize those changes, we can go to visualize master's history, and you'll see the full history of all the commits made including the latest one, which is on top. And we can see exactly what was made, what changes were made to the silly strings file. If we go to the new feature, we can see what was made. We added a new file, and the initial commit, of course, is all the original files. Okay, so remember to view differences now. We just go to diff and we see the differences. If we want the old version, we go to old version. If we want the new version only, we go to new version. I normally find the diff version the best to look at. Okay, I'm going to go out of here, and now we're going to do one or two more changes. So let's change trust fund, and I'm going to add an entry to this line over here. Let's add another line at the end here. Save the changes, and let's edit one last file. Go back and click on rescan, and now we can see the changes to the local from the local repository. Remember, this is showing us what's different between the working directory and the local repository. Okay, so let's pretend that these are one logical change. Even though it was in two files, the changes made were one logical change to the project. So I'm going to then stage them as one commit and put in a message. Commit that. Once again, visualize the master's history, and you can see all 4 commits made so far on the project. Alright, so there is a brief overview of working with a local repository.